I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
I think both guys are good players. I think both guys can help our team. All right, so why do you continually try to get me to say something that doesn't respect one of them? I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Welcome to episode 53 of the Mike and Sam Sports Show. Today we're going to do a full college football playoff preview. The games are coming very close, New Year's Day on Friday. And I'm very excited. Obviously, as an Ohio State fan, it's another playoff game that I can look forward to. But playing probably the team I hate the most over Michigan or Penn State, Clemson. I mean, they've beat us 3 times. We've never beat Clemson in our school history, I believe so. And last year was the worst loss I've ever witnessed. I just was speechless for so long after that game. But we're gonna try to talk about the playoff and talk about teams that got left out. So we'll start off with the overall playoff is top 4 teams. Obviously, number 1 we have Alabama, who has been outstanding this year. Number 2 we have Clemson. 3 we have Ohio State, and 4 we have Notre Dame, which is very hot topic, putting them at 4. A lot of people were kind of thinking that Texas A&M, who finished 5, should be put in the 4th spot. So what are your thoughts about the top 4?
I'm going to be completely honest. As much as I want to hate kind of the college football playoff format, and as much as I want to hate the committee and kind of their lack of transparency and kind of their arrogance, and I just feel like they don't like taking criticism from the outside, and they're very secretive about the selection process, and it ends up being very predictable of who the 4 teams are going to be each and every year, and that's definitely not fun. And I know a lot of people were saying they do this prediction show for nothing. We already know what the teams are going to be. But to be completely honest, the more and more I look at Ohio State, which I know a lot of people were really mad that Ohio State actually made it because they only played 6 games. People were mad at Notre Dame getting in because they just got blown out by Clemson. But looking at some of these other teams, A&M, Oklahoma, even Cincinnati, Coastal Carolina, I truly do think Notre Dame deserved to be in it. I think Ohio State deserved to be in it. And truthfully, I do think they got the top 4 right.
Yeah, I mean, this is made to have the top 4 teams in the college football playoff. I'm sorry. I mean, Cincinnati, great story, fun to watch, but you can't put a group of 5 team in there.
Yeah.
I mean, UCF a couple of years ago was just awesome to watch. They're extremely electric, but there's no way they can be put into a college football playoff if you want the 4 best teams in America. But yeah, the committee, I mean, yeah, they're very scrutinized because if you look at the members of the committee, they're all athletic directors from different schools. So it's going to be hard because there's going to be some sort of bias within these guys' minds. Just not if they have it, like maybe just in their psyche, like in the back of their mind, they want to pick like Archie Manning, for example, who's on the committee. He probably wants to pick an SEC school because he's an SEC guy. It's just a little. There's definitely some bias in here, but I know no system is going to be perfect. It's going to be hard. It's just hard that there are 5 Power 5 conferences and then there's 4 spots. So there's always going to be some sort of kind of people butting heads about what team should be in it. But I do think these teams are the 4 best teams that they could have picked. I know Notre Dame just got blown out by Clemson, but they did also just beat them earlier in the year. So those games pretty much cancel out. So these teams, basically Clemson and Notre Dame, are undefeated without their 2 games against each other. And I know Ohio State only played 6 games, but you want the 4 best teams, like I said, and they were obviously easily top 4 team in the country. I mean, there's no way around it. And it's really not their fault that so many games from other schools got canceled because of coronavirus.
Yeah, absolutely. And going on to Ohio State a little bit first, before I get to the point about UCF that you brought up, that kind of remind me of something. It's not Ohio State's fault that the Big Ten is extremely dysfunctional. That is not their fault. It's not their fault that the Big Ten commissioner cried and screamed about how dangerous playing this college football season is, how bad it would be, how bad COVID is, how progressively worse it's going to get, and then completely flipped out on his head as he doesn't have the foresight to see SEC schools are still going to play college football. You're going to end up playing college football, and everything you said about how dangerous the season is going to be if you play, it's going to look stupid when you end up playing the season. You're just going to have a late start. So, again, not Ohio State's fault of the conference that they're in is completely dysfunctional. I guarantee you if they had a regular schedule, they would be 3, maybe even 2 above Clemson because Clemson does have that loss. So, again, not Ohio State's fault. Absolutely, they are a top 4 team. And again, you want the top 4 teams playing. Second off, Well, I don't understand what the committee does not do, at least for 1 year, maybe even this year, is every year there's a team like UCF, like Cincinnati, like Coastal Carolina, who clearly is not a top four team in college football, but is undefeated, has a great season, even like Cincinnati. Oh, they have a bunch of athletic players that can keep up with SEC guys, with Big Ten guys, with guys from Clemson. Why don't you just throw one of those teams this year, next year, into the college football playoffs, have them either A, get absolutely dominated. So for future references, you can say, hey, look, we put Cincinnati in this year and they got dominated. So we shouldn't put this team in because even though they went undefeated, they're clearly not a better team. Or B, Cincinnati comes in, USC, UCF comes in a couple years before they actually win a game, and then that opens the floodgates for so many other schools to eventually make the college football tournament. I really don't understand why they don't do that. I think just 1 year you should let in one of these schools just so you can shut everyone up, really.
Yeah, I agree. Like this was the year that they should have experimented with like teams to be placed higher on the like the AP list, or like just like put like you said, put a UCF or Cincinnati into the playoff. But like I feel like this year was the year that they experimented the least on the top 25. I mean, they were putting like these blue bloods so high, like Oklahoma. They had two losses, but somehow they were 8 on the final ranking. I don't understand how you put a 2-loss Oklahoma above some of these other teams like BYU. 1 loss, they were 13, and I know. I mean, their one loss was to Coastal Carolina when it was an absolutely a dogfight the whole game. So they should. I think BYU should be higher on this list. I don't know why they just really were favoring these blue blood like Florida, who has 3 losses, is at 10. I think that's outrageous.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. Even, yeah, just like you said, Florida does not deserve to be in the top 10, in my opinion. I don't even think North Carolina, I know they're very hyped going into this year, being 13th. I think that's even a little generous. That's what makes Clemson so impressive to me. Just a little side note here, because they're not a blue blood school, they're not a historic, storied school. That's what I really do appreciate about Clemson is Dabo Sweeney comes up as this wide receivers coach. Clemson isn't anything. They aren't very good at recruiting. They aren't Alabama. They aren't Ohio State. They aren't Notre Dame. They don't have this rich history to slap along with them. And they end up, since the conception of the college football playoff, I believe they've made it every single time except one. Only other team to be like that is Alabama, which is absolutely incredible. But going on to kind of future for college football playoffs, I think Kirk Herbstreit said this in why he was trashing it is I could tell you the top four in 2023. I could tell you the top four in 2024. So I certainly do think the college football playoff does have a problem in that sense. What are your thoughts on kind of expanding the playoffs or keeping it 4 teams?
I mean, I don't think 4 teams works. But it gets to the point where I think there's a maximum amount of teams that you can do. I don't think like something like a 16 team. I think that would be too outrageous because I think football is way too demanding. You need at least like a week to recover from a football game
Yep.
before you play your next one. So I think something like you have like five the Power Five, the champion of the Power Five, they're each in, so that would be five, and then maybe one group of 5 teams. So like this year would be Cincinnati, and then 2 at-large teams. So you would have, I mean, a good sample size of teams that are the top their conferences that they won, and then you have 2 teams that like someone like Texas A&M, who a lot of people think they should have been in there, they would be in the college football playoff. So I think expanding it slightly would be the way to go, not going full-fledged like March Madness mode and having 16 teams.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think when people propose the 16 team kind of final battle for it, they forget that this is football. We're not playing basketball. We aren't playing baseball. We're playing football. Again, very physically demanding. The more games you play, the more at risk you are of having a team getting worse and worse because of injury. And definitely this year, I think it would be a horrible idea because obviously the more games you play, the more at risk the team is of contracting COVID over time and again getting injured. But I don't know. I think the top four is a little bit weird just to have 2 teams play and then one championship because looking at the NCAA, they love to milk college football as much as possible. It's a little weird to me that they don't want to do more games just to have more revenue, simply put. But just it's just weird how college football is the only sport and the only organization that at the very end of the season only 4 teams stand. I feel like it should just slightly be a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it should. I think 8 would be the number, but when you look at this top 25, like I feel like there's just such a drop off. Like these
Yeah.
top 4 teams, I mean, I think I would include A&M too, maybe even Oklahoma at 8. I mean, they do have 2 losses, but Oklahoma's still a really good team. I think they would just destroy some of these like lower ranked teams like Liberty, Tulsa, NC State at 24. I think like I know 4 is a small number, but I think these teams are so like far and above the other teams that that's why it's just 4.
And see, that gets to the bigger point I do want to hit on, and that is I'm starting to get the feeling that eventually, maybe not the next year, definitely not the next year, maybe not the next 5 years, maybe even not in the next decade. I just get the feeling that these teams like Cincinnati, these teams like UCF, these teams like Coastal Carolina, Northwestern, they're getting tired of just playing a bowl game at the end of the season. They're getting tired of being pushed aside by teams, quite frankly, that are significantly better than them. They have way more money and resources to recruit much better players. Every single year, it's such an incentive for seniors, juniors in high school. Hey, I'm Alabama. Hey, I'm Clemson. Hey, I'm Ohio State. Hey, I'm Notre Dame. Hey, I'm A&M, Oklahoma. You can play on the biggest stage of college football. I just feel like a separation from these teams are kind of slowly getting into the works because I feel like eventually teams like Cincinnati, again, teams like Iowa State, they're going to want their own college football playoffs, and that might result in them splitting away from the NCAA in its entirety as we know it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the issue with the NCAA is with the amount of conferences there is. I think that's the biggest issue. I think they need an overarching commissioner for all the teams in the country
Yeah.
because that would make things so much easier. If it was like just one, if they dissolved conferences and just had like one league and you like, I mean, I guess like with scheduling, you can like keep your conference because that just would make things a lot more easier. But like opening up more options to play outside of conferences and with like the top teams in each conference playing each other during the regular season, and that's how you can really tell like who is the good teams and who is the bad teams. I think opening it up and having more like competition, because looking at someone like Ohio State, like the Big Ten was not good this year at all. Ohio State was so much better than a lot of these teams, and I mean not even like look at last year too. They were so much better. I think Wisconsin. They played Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship last year, and I think they were like ranked 10 or something, and Ohio State was 2 in the nation. Like there's just so much like a big gap between Ohio State and the rest of the Big Ten. I think opening up where Ohio State can play these other top teams like Notre Dame every year, I think that would open up a lot more opportunities to see who was the top, like truly the top 4 teams in the nation.
I just don't understand if you're Wisconsin, why would you want to compete with Ohio State to get to a national championship? Because you know you're not going to end up winning. I know for a lot of these smaller schools, a lot of bad programs in college football, they love scheduling Alabama at home. They know they're going to get blown out 70-7, but it's because of the revenue. It's you're playing Alabama, you're going to have the stadium absolutely packed. You're going to have everybody tuning in on TV. That's why these smaller schools that aren't nearly as good as Alabama love to get blown out by Alabama every year. Again, it's because of the revenue, it's money driven, but I just feel like if there's a way where you can pack Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State all in the same conference, have them play every single year, have them compete for the same national championship every single year, and then have these other teams that are in other programs that are just significantly smaller. I wouldn't even say worse. I would just say smaller. I feel like that would be the best option to go.
Like you said, like playing like those Coastal Carolina, like obviously they were undefeated this year, but before they were good, they would play like bigger schools just because they make so much money from playing Alabama's, Ohio State's, Clemson's. That's how like they fund the rest of their athletic department is with the revenue they make from football. But like I don't know, it's such a hard situation because like as a smaller team, like you said, like winning those bowls, like the most random bowl you can think of, like the Stop and Shop Cupcake Bowl. Like
Yeah.
if you're a small school and you win that, like that's huge for your school because
Yeah.
you're not competing for a national championship. So it's just like college football has like too many levels to it where it's like it can't work perfectly at all. Like
It just yeah.
one more point, like for basketball, like I know basketball is like such an easy sport because like you can play multiple games on the same court like within the same day. So that's why basketball. I feel like basketball is a more perfect union because
Yeah.
like the 64 team tournament is just like it can get done like within a month. That's how quick these games can go by. But I think basketball is more has it's a better marriage with with conferences and stuff.
Yeah, and with college basketball, what makes it seem so united between every single team in the nation is when Loyola Chicago beats Michigan. It's when these really underdog schools beat these huge favorites. And I just think that's the kind of element of basketball that, oh, this team starts out shooting hot. This team's on a cold streak. Wow, this team that's significantly worse just beat them. I think that's why the NBA does 7 game series because one basketball game, two, even three can be very fluky. Just again, you can come in cold. Whereas I think football, one game does, for the most part, serve who the better team is, 4 quarters. Again, basketball, a lot can happen in 2 halves. Again, in basketball, a lot of the time, the worst team beats the better team. But again, I just think there should be more unity in college football. But getting into some of these matchups, of course, we got to talk about Clemson and Ohio State first. As a primary NFL fan, I mean, I can't ask for anything more than for the top two quarterback prospects to be playing each other. If you are an evaluator of quarterbacks, I mean, what other game do you want to watch other than Clemson and Ohio State?
Yeah, I mean, I think after watching that Big Ten championship, Justin Fields had 2 interceptions or 3 maybe, and I think that's like Trevor Lawrence really put himself above Justin Fields in that category about being an NFL prospect because Justin Fields hasn't looked like the same player like he did last year. But yeah, this is a very good game. These quarterbacks, like you want to see the top 2 quarterbacks in the country going after each other because when the lights are the brightest, who's going to show up and who's going to crumble. And I mean, I hope Justin Fields shows up. He's been struggling this year, which I mean, that's hurting it. I think it hurt his draft stock a lot this
Yeah.
year. Really, I mean, at the beginning of the year, me and you talked about. We made an episode talking about how close it could be entering the draft if Justin Fields really balls out, which he didn't, which is very surprising.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that episode. That's just the first thing I thought of when I started. Oh, Zach Wilson could be selected over Justin Fields. I actually just looked up Zach Wilson on Google. Just typed in Zach Wilson. First 2 articles. Could Zach Wilson be selected over Justin Fields in the 2021 NFL Draft? Why Zach Wilson is going to be a better pro than Justin Fields. It's crazy that things switch so quickly for Justin Fields. I think Dwayne Haskins getting released today indirectly is not a good look for Justin Fields just because people associate certain position groups with certain colleges. Obviously, Ohio State, you see cornerback, Ohio State, ooh, he must be good. You see quarterback, Ohio State, ooh, I don't know if he's going to be a good pro. So that kind of stigma is definitely not good for Justin Fields. And it's just disappointing how he's played. I think the most concerning aspect of his game has been when teams have blitzed him. He's kind of just shown the inability to feel the pressure, get to the open man. And I think that is one of the most significant things that carries over from college to the NFL because if you're a top 3, top 5 pick, you're most likely going to be playing under a very bad offensive line, whether you're Joe Burrow and your team overall sucks, or even if you are Tua Tagovailoa, where you're on a really good team, you're in playoff contention, but your offensive line still sucks. So just a little bit worried for Justin Fields at the next level. And I strongly believe the more and more I watch him, and I do need to watch him a little bit more this offseason before the draft, I just feel like his destiny in the NFL solely lies in his organization's hand who picks him. I don't think he's a guy that can go to the Bengals and succeed, but I think he's a guy that can go to the 49ers and literally lead them to a Super Bowl. That's my opinion on Justin Fields at the moment.
Yeah, I really think like he needs a good system, like you said, around him to perform well. Because last year, Ryan Day's first year as a head coach, but I think Ryan, like obviously this year it's been so crazy, so it's hard for him to get like working with coaches and stuff like that. But Justin, like last year, looking at last year, I know Ohio State was stacked last year, but like they really worked together, and Justin Fields took so much strides. Because I mean, in high school, he did beat Trevor Lawrence in the the QB 11, Elite 11
Yeah, Elite
competition, which
11.
is very impressive because people are saying like everybody knew who Trevor Lawrence was coming out of high school. So obviously, Justin Field does have the talent, the arm talent, and he has the intangibles there. It's just like you said, it's who's going to coach him, who's going to be his mentor when he gets there. I don't think if he goes to his team with someone like Tyrod Taylor, like that's the quarterback there, and he can learn up from that. I think that'd be very beneficial. But like you said, Joe Burrow, I think he was very mature when he went to the Bengals. He can kind of learn on his own and kind of excel by himself. But Justin Fields, I think he would need a veteran mentor to help him learn the NFL.
Yeah, I think what was so appealing to him coming out of high school, going into college, and I know certainly watching some of that Elite 11 episodes with Justin Fields, people love his coachability. He's just a very coachable guy. He loves learning from coaches. He's not, I don't know if he's Joe Burrow where he's going to challenge his coaches at the next level, say, hey, can we do this? Hey, can we do that? I think he's a more follow orders type of guy, which is very appealing for some bad coaches, which maybe isn't the best thing, but it's just disappointing to see now. I think the Jets, everything I've heard about from the Jets, no way they draft Justin Fields second overall. People are saying that he's not worth the second pick in the draft. I'm just very intrigued to see where he goes. I think he can potentially go to Carolina. I think that would be extremely interesting if they're picking high enough. I'm hearing a lot of rumblings from Dolphins actually that they're very dissatisfied with Tua, and if that Texans pick falls to number 3, they want Justin Fields. I don't think that's the move to go to move on from Tua so early on. But Justin Fields, I'm very excited to see where he goes and where he lands at the NFL. And I think it's extremely important for the long-term success of Ohio State, to be completely honest with you, that Justin Fields does good at the next level, because it's always good to show really, really, really high 5-star recruits, hey, look at this guy. We coached him up in college. You can be a really good quarterback in the pros if you come to our program. And I think Ohio State, in terms of recruiting quarterbacks, is starting to teeter on that line of Clemson. If there's a high recruit and Clemson's recruiting you, you're always going to go to Clemson, or even Alabama. So I think Ohio State does need to hit this on the head with Justin Fields at the next level.
Yeah, we don't have a history of being QBU with
Yeah.
talent at the next level. Dwayne Haskins getting cut today. I mean, he sucks, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it at all. He's really bad. He's terrible. But yeah, Justin Fields with the draft. I think I would really like to see him go to the Panthers. I think Matt Rule and Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator, would really work well with him, because Joe Brady was the quarterback whisperer at LSU. He's the reason. I'm not going to say the sole reason, but he's a lot of the reason why Joe Burrow was so good at LSU, because Joe Brady's he's a quarterback whisperer. But I mean, if the Colts made some moves and drafted Justin Fields, if they were able to trade up, I would be very, very happy for that, because I think Frank Reich is a very good quarterback coach, or quarterback like he can teach. Because if you look at the Eagles, Carson Wentz's best season was with Frank Reich when he was the offensive coordinator there. So I think Justin Fields can really benefit from a mentor like Frank Reich. And if they do sign Phillip Rivers again, which I mean, I don't want to get into Phillip Rivers because that game against the Steelers was just hard to watch with him down the stretch. But I know he's on a 1-year deal, but if they do get Phillip Rivers to another like 2-year contract and they draft Justin Fields, I think he'd be able to maybe learn from him. And I think I think that would help him a lot with the coaching staff the Colts have or the coaching staff the Panthers have.
Yeah, it's crazy to me how we're talking about the Colts front office and coaching staff in such a high regard. Flash forward a couple years ago, they're ruining Andrew Luck's career. So sad that kind of the timing in this situation has happened. But looking at the other quarterback that is going to be playing in the semifinal game is Trevor Lawrence. And basically at this point, after it being confirmed that he's going to the Jets, now it's basically confirmed that he's going to the Jaguars, as with the Jets' second win on Sunday. the Jaguars, no matter what, no matter if they win, other teams lose, they're getting the first pick. Gardner Minshew is going to be out the door. He's probably going to be their backup next season. I would assume they keep him. Potentially a trade market for Gardner Minshew of very needy quarterback teams, but Justin Field or Trevor Lawrence to the Jaguars. What's your reactions to that?
I mean, I think it's going to be a struggle from him from the beginning because they don't have much help on that team. Gardner Minshew, I mean, I think Gardner Minshew does. I think he'll be one of the best backups in the NFL. So he's really that good. He has a lot of skills, but when he started, like, there's just not much help there. DJ Shark is like an average wide receiver, I think, and I just think they need to make some moves to get more players onto the Jaguars. They need to really hit. They need to hit this draft out of the park for Trevor Lawrence to get some weapons, some offensive linemen. I think they do have a great running back, and that can be a really helpful for Justin Fields as a rookie. But for coaches coming in, I don't know if they're going to fire Doug Marrone. I haven't really heard any reports saying they're going to fire Doug Marrone. So I think I don't know. I think Jacksonville should move on from from Doug Marrone. I think having like a young coach, like a McVay type guy, would really help Justin or Trevor Lawrence. Because if they just have a match made and have him right from the beginning of his career, I think that would do wonders for him.
See, I want to say that, but now being a Cardinals fan, looking at Cliff Kingsbury and kind of the failed experiment there, wouldn't call it a failed experiment yet. But I've realized about doing that with pairing a rookie head coach with a rookie quarterback. Not only now is your quarterback going to go through rookie struggles and a rookie learning curve, but now you have your quarterback and coach trying to adjust to the NFL game, trying to get their bearings, going over hiccups. The NFL coach, the rookie coach, he has to help himself before he helps his rookie quarterback, because how could he be a great mentor, be a great play caller, just show the rookie quarterback the ropes when he himself doesn't even know the ropes? And I think that's what I've quickly realized about Cliff Kingsbury, and why maybe it's a good idea for the Jaguars to get more of a veteran offensive mind in there. I completely agree. They need to get rid of the Saxonville era. Every single resemblance, every single player on that Saxonville era, every coach, they should just get rid of them. New era, rebuild, Trevor Lawrence, face of the franchise. I think they should absolutely go in that direction. But at the same time, I do not think they should hire a rookie head coach, because this is already a very dysfunctional franchise. Them just letting go of Tom Coughlin not too long ago, him kind of ruining that franchise in a sense. I think they should get a more experienced guy that at the same time isn't so old school, because I don't think that's helping rookie quarterbacks at this point. I do think they should have a balance in between the two.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't know. I think Cliff Kingsbury. I think he's a very bad coach. I don't know. Still can't really wrap my head around the Cardinals hiring him. But sorry, I don't mean to insult your team
No,
there.
I agree.
But if the Jaguars go after someone like Brian Dable, the Bills' offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, the Chiefs' offensive coordinator, I think that would really help them, because those are two of the smartest offensive minds in the NFL today, and especially Brian Dable, who did wonders with Josh Allen. I mean, I'm talking like doing wonders like Trevor Lawrence is of this kind of this project, but he's not. Like,
Yeah.
I just think matching a smart mind with Brian Dable or Eric Bieniemy with Trevor Lawrence, I think that would just do great for that team, because like this Jaguars, they've been stuck in like you said, the Saxonville era where they're just like a hard nosed organization. Tom Coughlin, he was fired, but he ran it like a boot camp. I think Jacksonville needs to get away from that path that they're on and become a new, like, fresh young organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. But going back into the college football playoffs a little bit, I want to get your, not reaction per se, because you already gave it, but your hopes and odds of Ohio State beating Clemson. What do you think the result of that game is going to be?
I mean, I'm not gonna like Alabama or Notre Dame. I think that's a shoo-in. Alabama's gonna destroy them, no question about it.
Yeah.
But I think there is a chance that Ohio State wins this game. It's not that big. I would give it like a 70-30 chance that Ohio State can win, or maybe even like 65 around, like Clemson, 65% Clemson can win. I think the special thing about Ohio State is I really love Ryan Day. I mean, I think he would go to the NFL soon. I think he's a great coach. He might be wasting some how good he is offensively in the college football once he goes to the NFL. But like Ryan Day is such a great. I think he's a great motivator. He's just can really motivate the troops, and I think the players on this team that were on the team last year, their blood is boiling from that game last year. So I think it's going to carry over into this game. Now, I don't know if Clemson's just going to completely overpower them once the game starts. I mean, we did lose so many players from last year. We lost three of our best players, Okuda, Chase Young, and J.K. Dobbins, and then so much depth like with Arnett and Jordan Fuller. But like I think we need to come out flying. What worries me is our secondary. It's been gashed all year, honestly, with big plays.
I think Clemson's defense, though, at times this year has been slightly questionable. But what, in your opinion, puts Clemson over Ohio State? Not only why are they ranked above them, I think they just have a better resume. I think that question answers itself. But what, from just a roster perspective, makes Clemson better than Ohio State and gives them a 65% chance to win that game instead of them having a 35% chance, in your opinion?
I just obviously Trevor Lawrence. He's just so seasoned veteran. I know he's going to show up in that game. Last year, he put the Superman cape on and won that game himself, pretty much. And I don't like. I don't. I love Justin Fields. I have trust in Justin Fields, but it's really like he doesn't have the same like Superman ability as Trevor Lawrence. Obviously, that's why Trevor Lawrence is the number one prospect going to the NFL draft. But Clemson, like the thing about Clemson this year, they lost. Like a lot of people thought, like, oh, they lost so many players in the draft, like T. Higgins at wide receiver. They were starting a lot of young people on their team, like Brian Brees on the defensive line stepping up. But like all these players stepped up greatly. I mean, a lot, but like the young guys on Ohio State's defense, they struggled a lot. I don't know if it is because we just played 6 games.
Yeah.
Clemson did have 11 games to really mesh together and these guys to get some chemistry. That could be an issue, but the thing is the difference between Ohio State and Clemson is like the players that stepped up for Clemson versus the players not stepping up for Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that just 11 games compared to 6 games, you can kind of get your hiccups out of the way, even though you went 10-1, even though your only loss came when Trevor Lawrence was out. I think it does boost an added confidence in the Clemson locker room, kind of checking your ego a bit. Oh, we're this great team. Why does Trevor Lawrence get all the credit? Why don't any of us get the credit? And then you to lose against Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence, and then you to destroy Notre Dame with Trevor Lawrence. I think that kind of reaffirms how good Trevor Lawrence is. This is a topic maybe for another day, but I know a lot of people say Trevor Lawrence is the best college quarterback of all time. Not sure if I agree with that, but the fact that he might go his entire college football career without a Heisman Award, I think that's pretty insane.
Yeah, I mean, Dabo has been like kicking and screaming, saying it would be a travesty for his career to not like go down without a Heisman next to it. Which I mean, I agree. He's one of the greatest prospects since Andrew Luck entering the draft. So it's gonna be hard for someone that special not have a Heisman on his resume potentially. Which I don't think he's gonna win. I think someone like Mac Jones or Devontae Smith will win
I
out of
agree.
Alabama because they've been having insane stats. But like looking at the past Heisman winners, like he was in the top 5 every year. So there's just been someone who's been better than he has been each year. I mean, that's just they've had better numbers. He's just someone like you know he's going to be good every year, but there's someone else that just comes out and surprise everybody else.
Yeah, and it might not even be about, I think obviously it's an award. It's not necessarily about who's the best player in college football. It's more about who not only had the best season in college football, which I do think there is a difference between having a great season and being a great player, and kind of having that storyline to go along with it. And Trevor Lawrence is this guy who's been groomed since his freshman year in high school. We expect him to all be good. He's kind of this just, again, like you said, there's no expectation of Trevor Lawrence having a bad season. We know he's going to put up a Heisman type season. I feel like you need to exceed expectations to win the Heisman. Look at Baker, he was a walk on. Look at Kyler Murray, he somewhat came out of nowhere to have that great Heisman season. Then obviously Joe Burrow came out of absolutely nowhere, going from a 6th round grade to consensus #1 pick in the NFL draft. I do think you need that element of storyline, surprise, underdog too, and Trevor Lawrence just simply doesn't have that and never has.
Yeah, and like looking at like you could not give the Heisman to someone else besides Joe Burrow last year. I
Yeah.
mean, he was just one of the greatest single seasons of all time.
Mhm.
And Kyler Murray, if you stack up Kyler Murray and Trevor Lawrence. I think a lot of people just say Kyler Murray was a lot more an exciting player, and Trevor Lawrence didn't even start his freshman year. Kelly Bryant was the quarterback at the beginning of the year, and Trevor Lawrence then stole the starting job. So, I mean, I think looking at like the players that won it when he was potentially a favorite was Kyler Murray and Joe Burrow. And I really don't think there's anyone else to give it to those 2 years.
No, I completely agree. And going on to this year, I think he would have won it if he didn't miss he missed 2 games because of COVID, I
I
believe.
believe so. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, that's just a shame. But again, Trevor Lawrence, it's about the bigger picture. Let's get a national championship. I think that's what he's worried about. Kind of going into the national championship matchup. I don't want to do this to you, but let's do in a hypothetical world. It is Clemson, Alabama. Who do you think wins that matchup and why?
I really think Alabama would win. I think on offense, like looking at defenses, I don't really know that many players on Alabama's defense. I know like Dylan Moses, the middle linebacker, but that's about it. But you just know no matter like who's on that defense, Nick Saban's going to coach up an exceptional defensive game plan. So I'm not worried about that. But Alabama's offense is insane, and they're going to put up so many points. I mean, Mac Jones, who a lot of people are saying, oh, he's just a game manager, is now a Heisman candidate. That's insane from the beginning of the year to now. Devontae Smith is better than any other wide receiver in the nation. He's better than the wide receivers in last year's draft class, and people are saying last year's draft class was the best of all time or one of the best of all times. And he's that good. He's a Heisman candidate as a wide receiver, which is never really happened. It's
Crazy.
just kind of just a quarterback award nowadays. Najee Harris is just like a Mac. He's just like Derrick Henry 2.0, and you just can't stop their offense. It's extremely hard.
No, it is. And that's why I think the game is simply just going to come down to it's just Alabama having such an overwhelmingly better defense than Clemson. Obviously, I just don't think Clemson is going to get stops against Alabama. I just believe that it'll come down to Trevor Lawrence having 1 or 2 hiccups, this Clemson offense having 1 or 2 hiccups, them still arguably putting up 40 points, but that's just simply not enough. You need to play picture perfect football if you're going to beat this year's Alabama team. Unless Mac just completely comes into the game like Jalen Hurts did and completely shits the bed, I don't think he has a backup. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if Alabama has a backup right now, like Tua Tagovailoa, who can come in at halftime and play hero ball for them. I think unless Mac Jones completely shits the bed, I do think it's Alabama winning this national championship.
Yeah, they do have Bryce Young, who was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school.
Okay.
So I think if Mac Jones didn't perform, I think they would be in good hands. But I mean, I don't even think Mac Jones will crumble. He's been so good this year. He showed up in the SEC championship against Florida. And I know Florida doesn't have a great defense, but still putting up 50 points is a very high feat to accomplish, and he did it. But like the way Clemson needs to win is their defense needs to stop this offense, and I really don't know if that will happen at all.
How about Ohio State? Do you like Ohio State's chances to beat Alabama if it came down to that?
Honestly, yeah, I don't know if it would happen. I would like to see it happen. I would be rooting extremely hard for it to happen, but it would be very hard for anyone to stop Alabama. I mean, I would be curious to watch like a 2019 LSU team versus this year's Alabama team.
Oh, no, me too, no doubt. I do think LSU would win that game, though. Just looking at the sheer talent that LSU had straight up, absolutely incredible. I think the most NFL players ever drafted, or most college football players ever drafted, most players drafted to the NFL from a single national championship team. LSU, their pro turnout this year has just been absolutely incredible. Arguably their second best pro, though, did not get drafted, Jamar Chase. I think he's been swept under the rug a little bit this season. LSU fans were so mad about the preseason polls that came out at the beginning of the season, disrespecting them. It was clear they were going to have a drop-off season. That's absolutely what happened to the LSU Tigers.
Yeah, it was really hard for them having Jamar Chase opt out at the beginning of the year. His production would have been insane because
Yeah.
would be the number one wide receiver on that team and by far the best. Probably him and Devontae Smith. Obviously, Jamar Chase, we haven't seen him this year, but like they're 1 and 2. They're so both of them are extremely good wide receivers. And I think both of them are better than any wide receiver last year as well. But yeah, like that LSU team, I think it's one of the greatest college football teams just ever assembled. Probably looking at someone like those U teams from the early 2000s or the 1990s, they had exceptional NFL talent on it too. But yeah, but just no wonder you lost what 6 players in the first round, and
Yep.
then so many players in the rest of the draft. No wonder you're not going to be that good. You can't lose that much production and expect to be a top 10 team again. There's just no way.
And more importantly, you lose the guy, obviously Joe Burrow, that's the most important loss there. But I think maybe just as important is that you lose the guy who overhauled your program. You lose the guy who made LSU from this run first defensive heavy, we're going to produce cornerbacks, we're going to produce defensive players, to we're going to be the greatest pro style West Coast offense in all of college football, and that's Joe Brady. And I think losing him and Coach O, I think Coach O, from everything I've seen from him playing football myself, I think he's more of that motivator, CEO, overseer of the program. I don't think he's an X's and O's guy, to be honest. And when your head coach isn't an X's and O's guy, I do think it's hard at any level, to be a consistent program or to be a consistent team. And I think that's what's happened to LSU more than anything else, really.
Yeah, I think without a doubt, Coach O is a motivator. And I think they do need like that eye in the sky, like Joe Brady was, to kind of call the plays and really work with the offense. But I think LSU will be very good next year. I think Coach O is an exceptional recruiter, so I don't think they're going to be down for too long. But it's so hard being in the SEC. I would hate to be in the SEC if I was a college football team because you're just in purgatory every year because you know Alabama is going to win. You know you're going to have an outstanding season. You're going to go to the SEC championship and you're going to get beat by Alabama. It's a hard life to live in.
No, it absolutely is. Even like a team like Florida, I feel like every year a team in the SEC like Florida, oh, is this the year that Alabama doesn't win the SEC? I don't know if it's going to happen in the Nick Saban era. I know Alabama had, what was it, in the 90s maybe? They had a rough stretch, but other than that, they're a storied program, probably the most historic college football program in the entire world. So Alabama, just annoying and disappointing to see them win the championship there this year. But on a side note, I know for a couple years stretch there was a thing going where if LeBron won the championship, Alabama would. If LeBron lost the championship, Alabama would lose the national championship. And this year it seems like the LeBron Alabama ties are kind of coming back together.
Yeah, every year when you see Alabama in the playoff Instagram, you see a bunch of those posts on Instagram. Like it's a little like cycle of the year where it's like a little holiday where they just start posting those. But no, I mean, it is insane like that they win every year every time LeBron wins. So jump to conclusions. If you're a bettor, you go with put your money on Alabama. I mean, the odds are probably insane. I don't even think there's odds for the game against
No.
Notre Dame because it's that big of a margin.
No, yeah, there's never odds with that. I've never bet college football, but I mean the point spread on a Alabama versus Army game, let's say, not to disrespect Army. Army's actually been a great program. I'm pretty sure there was a moment this year where their coach cried because of how great of a season they did have, but the point spread on a game like that, I don't is there even money to be made if you're Vegas, even if you put it at minus, you know, 30 points? I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. There's like it would just be free money, and it wouldn't even be worth it to put money down because of so little you would make from the Alabama game against Notre Dame. But I'm curious to see what the odds would be if for Alabama against Clemson or Alabama Ohio State.
Yeah, me too, but really excited about this college football just playoff. Really excited about some of the bowl games. I think there's some really interesting games in here. Excited to see what Cincinnati does. I know a lot of people are kind of hooting and hollering about their athletic talent. I have not watched one Cincinnati game, so I'm definitely going to tune into their bowl game.
Yeah, I think they're just a gritty program, but it's sad. Like, there's a lot of great matchups in these bowl seasons, but it's just hard. It's just sad when you see someone like Kyle Pitts, the tight end out of Florida, who is supposed to be one of the best tight end prospects ever, and he's opts out of the bowl. I just hate when you have a great matchup and then it's just kind of ruined by these NFL prospects opting out.
I completely understand that the risk reward just isn't there with them. But for some players, you can make a magical bull run, and even increase your draft stock. I think that might have happened to Dalvin Cook, where he was maybe a third round, fourth round running back for whatever reason that was. He was clearly a first round talent his entire last season at Florida State. But I just remember turning on that Florida State game and being like, who the hell is this running back? This guy's better than Saquon Barkley. Probably hyperbolic at the time, but might have turned out to be true. So a a very memorable bowl game could go a long way in a guy's draft stock.
Yeah, and then like you have programs like that get mad. They're like, oh, you had a terrible season. You didn't win a bowl. Like you're Oklahoma, you're supposed to win a bowl. Then their fans are like, well, our whole team was opted out. So it's just very like problematic when the players opt out. I feel like looking back at college football, I feel like Christian McCaffrey started the trend of players opting out.
I feel like, mm, I mean, yeah, he was definitely one of the more high profile guys to do it because, I mean, he was a Heisman candidate and he ended up opting out of the bowl game. I feel like there has been players before him to do that, but it's kind of this new school era of we're looking for the draft. We want to make money as soon as possible. There's very few college football players, college basketball players more so than football, but that are like Justin Herbert that say, 2 years ago, I'm going to be a consensus top 10 pick. I'm going to stay in college, risk my chance of my draft stock going down, and my draft stock actually goes up. That's really been unfavorable for guys more than favorable. And I think, Sam, that's why they do it. Look at DeShone Kizer. Look at Christian Hackenberg. I think both of those guys were borderline first round picks. They have a horrible season, end up getting drafted. I believe both of them in the second round. Then I'm pretty sure both of them are out of the NFL at that point. So I think that's kind of a reason why guys just want to go early and guys want to opt out of these games because they don't want to put bad film out there. If they think they've hit their limit and they've hit their peak in terms of putting good film out there for NFL franchises, they just want to pull the plug on their career and just kind of move forward to the NFL.
No, I completely understand why they do it. I just, as a fan, I want to watch some good matchups. I don't want to see like a guy that's gonna in 3 years is gonna be an accountant and not an NFL player play against each other. That's just like my opinion with the bowl games. But I mean, yeah, it's always even if like I'll still watch these top 10 games even with the loss of some talent.
No, yeah, and I guess what you just said there just is why I like NFL football more than I like college football because when you're looking at NFL players, it's this guy was up last night studying the playbook, studying the other team, and then you look at some college football guys and it's like this guy was massively drunk 12 hours before partying his ass off, then studying for his psych final and then he has to go out and play a game. Don't get me wrong, there's some partiers in the NFL too, probably even equally so to college football, but I just like the professional aspect of the NFL, something that Dwayne Haskins was lacking.
No, Dwayne Haskins, he's a very foolish. I mean, I knew it like he did break some insane amount of Big Ten records when he was there, but he lacks so much athleticism that I did not know. I didn't think it was going to translate to the NFL. That's why I think Justin Fields could potentially, hopefully, fingers crossed, be different because he is much more athletic. But yeah, that's the fun thing about the NFL. That's why I love the NFL because they're all NFL players. You're not having someone that's a communications major line up against like Najee Harris, trying to go one on one with Najee Harris in the middle of, in the hole. I think that's why it's just two grown men in the NFL going against each other.
No, absolutely. And just maybe one final point here about Dwayne Haskins, real quick, just because it is very recent hourly news. The moment for me where I just lost all confidence in him was when he didn't get the nod to start last season. And instead of being attached to the hip to Alex Smith, the starting quarterback, or it was not Alex Smith last season, but it was Case Keenum. Him moping around on the sideline, not talking to anyone, just being by himself, being very moody that he's not the starter. That's just not the attitude. That's not a winning attitude at the next level. Obviously, there's a lot of immaturity issues, and Ron Rivera just no bullshit guy. If you're immature, he wants you out, and that ended up happening.
Yeah, I feel like it was just like a three-strike system. You know, like you said when that moment where he was moping around on the sideline, and then when he didn't get a start and he won the game, and he was caught like taking a selfie with the fan when he was supposed to take the final snap of the game. And then obviously this at the strip club with no mask on, and especially Ron Rivera having like cancer treatment done to him, so he does have a weak immune system, and that's just putting him at risk. And then Ron Rivera just being like a no nonsense guy. And then I think it's the right move for Washington. But now like Washington is a team that needs to address the quarterback because they obviously Alex Smith is not the future. They need to find someone else to have the reins.
Yeah, I saw a very funny article that Dwayne Haskins wrote in high school talking about if RG3 doesn't pan out, then the Redskins are going to be picking a quarterback in the next couple of years. And the same exact thing happened to him in the same exact organization. I just like how things are very ironic in that sense. But looking at the football team, yeah, they're in the quarterback market. I just love how it goes from historically in the NFL, we draft a guy with a top pick. We draft a guy in the first round. We know right away he's not going to be the guy. That's what happened with the football team. They knew right away, I think in his rookie season, that Dwayne Haskins wasn't even a starting NFL caliber quarterback. I love their willingness to just immediately move on from him. Second season, cut him right away for nothing. Just cut him. Cardinals did that too. They moved right on, even though they traded up in the draft to get Josh Rosen. I think that's a great move the NFL is taking in a step forward. Let's stop being bad for the first 5 years of this guy's contract and then move on, then draft a quarterback. If we know he's not the guy, let's admit we're wrong and move on from him, unlike the Bears doing with Mitch Trubisky doing, and I think it's making teams better in the NFL.
Yeah, but it is crazy that Mitch Trubisky has kind of been performing to great standards these past couple of weeks, and I think we're not going to get too much depth into this, but if the Bears get into the playoffs, I think they can win a game.
You do. I mean, so for the Arizona Cardinals, I've been paying attention to this very closely. Real quick, I know the Cardinals decide their fate when they're in, they lose, the Bears are in. I'm pretty sure that's it no matter what. Or I think the Bears and Cardinals would need to lose and a couple things that happen for a team like the Vikings to get in. But most likely it's Bears, Cardinals. Kyler Murray's doubtful for the game. I just saw a couple hours ago, which we're going to lose if he doesn't play this game, and we're going to lose if he plays injured. We're playing the Rams. But the Bears, I just feel like their offense is going to crumble under the playoff pressure. But Mitch Trubisky, that season he made the Pro Bowl, and that season he did play in the playoffs. Let's not forget he played good in that playoff game, and the only reason they ended up losing was because Cody Parkey, I believe, missed that field goal.
No, yeah. He did set them up like on that drive for the field goal, but yeah, I mean, let's see. I'm excited for the NFL playoffs. I'm excited for the bowl season. Go Buckeyes. But with that being said, we hope you enjoyed this all college football episode. We love talking football. It's both of our favorite sports. So hope you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.